We don't rely on warranty work. We don't actively seek it out. So tremendously grateful for the way that our business has grown and the position that we're in to not have to rely on that. But it's somehow permeated into manufacturers' verbiage and thus into salespeople's verbiage to be like, you don't need maintenance, it's covered, don't sweat it.
If you're looking back and you're telling the new person who's getting into sales, the person who's not really good at developing the customer, what are your highlights for them? Hey, everybody. Scott here with NAHFTA, and I'm so excited to be joined today by Camron Jackman. He is the development manager over at Ace Fitness. He was highly recommended that we sit down and have a chat for a while. So welcome to the podcast, Camron.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Super psyched to be here. So looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you here. And it was a pleasure meeting you last year, by the way, too. It's amazing as my community grows, how many cool people are really in this industry. And it's a pleasure to have you. It's been fun to watch the things that I've seen you do over the past year, the risks that you have taken, and we get to talk about a little bit. So tell me, how did you end up in the industry?
Yeah, so starting in the industry, probably like most people, was just an accident, a happy accident. I was delivering pizzas when I was like 20, 22, something like that, and found an ad on Craigslist to deliver fitness equipment. And I figured that'd be better than pizzas. And so that's where I started. That was 2014, started on a delivery truck. You've got me reflecting now. When I started there, we had one van parked outside of a CVS, and we would drop off there and I would pick up my lead from his house. The operation is just so much different now. So, but that was the starting point, early mornings, one van driving across town, doing deliveries. So that's where I started and kind of grew from there.
And Ace Fitness at that point would have been over 10 years old.
Yeah, right. Was founded in 2004 and I came on in 2014.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, that says a lot about how growth curve can happen, right?
Right.
It says a lot about, it just sometimes takes a while to figure out how to do this, because
Certainly.
there's not a rule, there's not a playbook for this. So that's very interesting. I didn't know the growth curve was that slow. So how big is Ace Fitness now?
Ace Fitness now is, just quadruple the size probably. We normally run 6 to 8 technicians in the field. We've got 4 management staff. We've got 7 vans, 2 box trucks. We've really, really scaled up from my starting point. That's for sure.
So what kept you
we
here?
Go ahead.
What's kept you here?
What's kept me here, firstly and foremost, is the culture we've developed here. Working with the owner of Ace Fitness, Ruben Hand, has just been incredible blessing to kind of learn under his tutelage. He's got just a massive tenure in the field. And so I was able to absorb a lot of that knowledge and a lot of those skill sets that he'd kind of worked on. And so that's number one. Number two is enjoy the work. I really wasn't much of a mechanical guy growing up, and just building fitness equipment and servicing it kind of, flicked a switch for me. I was like, this is kind of cool, working with my hands, putting things together, having a finalized product and being able to say that I did that was super fulfilling. It was just super fulfilling. And it was also not the, the monotony of like a typical office job where, before any of this, I'm punching in numbers, for books on an online Amazon store. And so that's can be pretty tiresome. And, being able to be in the field, different customers, different environments, different equipment, it was just that fit my need. I like a change of pace. I like new things. And so you do the same thing every day in a completely different capacity every time. So that really brought it home for me to find a home in this industry.
And how did you end up working with business development? So, for those who don't understand, business development is more or less sales.
It's this yeah, it's the Trojan horse for sales for sure. Yeah, so I'll give you the full story. I was on the delivery truck for probably a little over a year, maybe close to 2, just running as a lead technician, kind of a revolving door of turnover in the passenger seat. Very difficult to find people who want to stick it out in the industry. So that's a huge challenge. But we did land on someone who's been with the company the same amount of time as I have. Name is Jesse. He's the director of the company here now. So two guys who started on the delivery truck doing deliveries only. Now we are we're the two longest tenured management staff at Ace Fitness. One is the director of operations, the other business development manager. And so through that grit and grind on the truck, we were able to scale up, you know? And I think that, you know, Ruben had noticed that early on and gave us a pathway. I was like, you know, I see the potential in you guys for, you know, beyond the delivery truck. Let's work out how to make that a reality, you know? There wasn't a management position like just open waiting for somebody to fill it. There was nobody, you know, accepting applications. You kind of had to create it. Like, all right, well, you guys are managers now. I don't know what you're going to manage, but you're managers and you're managing it, you know? So it's like, great, well, let's do that, you know? And so, stepped into a hybrid management slash still on the delivery truck position, which is just par for the course in our industry, is like you need to be proficient at everything in order to succeed and to continue to scale. So, you know, I ran the delivery truck on Monday, Jesse was in the office. Then I'm in the office on Tuesday and Jesse's on the truck on Tuesday, you know? And so we had to continue to grind, continue to build, continue to deliver to customers while also trying to build our own management positions, you know? And through that, just trying to get a little bit more traction as far as tenure with field employees. Probably the biggest struggle. I'm sure that you've run into that as well. And I think part of it is just not having a concrete future. Like, what am I looking at here? You know, a lot of guys came in the door like, yeah, it's a job. I'm on a truck. I deliver. Like, what else is there? You know? And at the time, it's too difficult to paint them a picture when there's not like an end game, you know? And so at Ace specifically, we've worked and done our best to create that for guys. Like, hey, you're going to come in here as a service technician, but we're training you as a lead. Like, you will be familiar with all aspects of the fitness service industry. And by the way, let me show you what all those aspects are. You know, here's service, here's maintenance, here's repair, here's installation, you know, and and you can go to a manufacturer and get certified. But what does that count for? I don't know. So trying to get guys a bigger picture of what it could be and what it could turn into, and I try to refer to my own story as much as possible. Like, look, I was there. I came in at $10 an hour on a delivery truck, and now I'm business development manager. I'm pursuing a sales front. I'm selling maintenance. I'm building client relations. It's like it doesn't happen overnight, but there are pathways you can pursue. There's things that you can grow into, but you have to be willing to put in the work to grow into it.
I believe that because our industry is not as robust, I guess, as our colleagues are in other industries, that sometimes you just have to ask for it. You just have to say, "Hey, boss. Hey, owner. Hey, whoever. I would like to do this. Can I try?" Now, then it takes the owner the wherewithal to go, "Okay, we'll try it," and I'll lose. It's not going to be the winning strategy at first, but you got to start somewhere, right? Because something tells me you weren't a rock star the very first time you went out to go see customers, were you? You know,
Absolutely not.
tell
Absolutely
me
not.
about that. Tell me about the first couple of years of Cameron being the guy going out knocking on doors.
Well, yeah, I guess there's two fronts to that, in my right out of the gate doing deliveries and stuff, even in the residential capacity, it's a lot of high-end clientele, and so you have to be sharp, you have to either be quiet and stay out of the way or be sharp when those conversations are due, And so I did my best to just watch and observe, how do people react? Like there's a level of like beyond fitness equipment experience, it's just interpersonal development, and understanding how to break bad news to people, understanding how to explain next steps, reassuring people how to that you're going to take care of them. You're not going to leave this warranty issue out of box undealt with, and we'll call you in 6 months when we see a part, maybe. But yeah, moving into like my business development position was trial by fire. Like I didn't even know what I was walking into. All I knew is what we do for a living, and I know that you need it, but that's kind of the extent of the training manual. And so it would start off very awkward, like you just know you're asking the wrong questions, but you don't know what the right ones are. So I'll go in and ask them like, how's your fitness center? And you get a blank stare. I'm referencing multifamily, by the way. A lot of multifamily front office people, maybe you manager, but even at the manager level, they they may not have a pulse on what's happening. I'll ask them, what's your fitness center like? How are you enjoying your fitness center? And they're like, look, if it's not broken, I don't even think about it. I've got roofing, shingles, and landscaping and a tree removal and the whole nine. And so it was a ton of stumbling and bumbling and refining a script and you know asking questions that are going to get me into your fitness center, figuring out what those questions are, what they look like, how it comes off. So again, that was a year. Probably the first half of that year or first quarter of that year was just figuring out how to talk to these people the right way. And fully trial by fire. Just, hey, this didn't work. Hey, this seemed awkward. Coming back and just brainstorming with the owner and figuring out how to reapproach it. And eventually built up a pretty decent, what I say, like as a pathway into people's fitness center as far as how to approach them, the questions to ask, the value you can offer immediately to, get where you want to go. And then you can deal with everything through email from there, quotes and estimates and all that stuff.
Did you locate how to sell books or watch a lot of YouTube videos or anything to become better?
Not as much as I should have. I'm certain. I kind of just I've learned a lot in this industry just by doing. I had kind of I had a stint where I was in the field, came to the office, then back out to the field, mostly because I felt like I didn't have a deep understanding of fitness equipment. I had done deliveries for 2 or 3 years, then kind of transitioned into management without experiencing service, like full-fledged service and diagnostic.
Mhm.
And there was a point in my management career where I felt inexperienced. I'm like, I can't tell you why you need a drive motor, and I don't know why your lower board burnt up. I don't know the ins and outs. All I know is that I can order it online and we'll be there in a week. But I had to dip back into the field to broaden my knowledge and to feel more comfortable. And so in the same way where, just learning about fitness equipment, how to work on it and why things operate the way they do, I did the same thing with sales where it was like, I'm just going to go head first. And I'm, I'm pretty, I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm pretty sharp. And I learn pretty quick. So I just kind of threw myself into it. Like it's just a numbers game. I'm just going to do volume and the habits will come with it. I dabbled a little bit into some sales stuff on YouTube, but nothing so impactful that it was like, yo, this is the key to sell fitness equipment maintenance. That was another thing is that nobody, nobody does what we do and nobody does what I do. As so far as I know, I don't know anyone else who goes out and sells maintenance only. There's sales companies who go out and sell the equipment, and then there's service people go in and say, I'll take care of it. But like, selling just a maintenance agreement alone is like it's just its own thing. And so I knew that going into it, and I knew it's like, look, we do it for people already. There's obviously value here. I just have to find the right way to package it and pitch it to people to get them to move forward with it.
It is difficult when your selection of product is limited to, one thing, and then but if it breaks, we can fix that too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know. It
Well,
is.
what's fun, it's It's just, and it's also like a very boring thing to sell. Like if I walk in and try to sell you on the sleek new treadmill, it's got all these touch screen features and da da da. It's like that. At least you have a product, you know. And it's like selling maintenance is first. There's an education gap, you know. Like
Yes.
no, there's not a property manager on the face of the earth that can tell you if a treadmill is properly lubricated, right? And so if I go in there with my freaking service tech hat on and I'm like, there's no lubricant on your tread belt, and that's going to increase friction, which in turn your amp draw, they've they've hit the mute button. They've tuned out completely. You know, it's like all these technical aspects that I know I have a strong foundation of knowledge on. It doesn't mean anything, right? And so you have to repackage that into why it matters to them, right?
So how do you
Instead
do
of,
that?
yeah, instead of,
If you're walking in and you're talking, because working with multifamily or hotels, the
yeah,
verticals, even some of your big gyms, actually a lot of your big gyms. I have a warranty, so therefore I don't need to provide any maintenance. Well, your
right,
car out there has a warranty too, but you provide maintenance. And it probably would not break down in a certain time period if you didn't do any maintenance, but you do it anyways. Why not to this other mechanical piece of thing that has, a motor in it and whatnot? So how do you educate in a respectful way to the potential customer?
right. Great question. It's challenging unless you're in front of the right person. So I guess the first step there is get past the front desk person. These conversations you just have to have at a higher level with people who are making decisions for it to really ring true. You know, explaining anything in the front is difficult, but what I do is I keep it simple and I keep it resident focused, which is safety number one. And so if I see that something is going on, let's say I can tell that the belt and deck is severely worn out. I know there's high amp draw. This thing's going to shut down in 2 months or 6 months or whatever it is. You just repackage that to the front and say, hey, your treadmill is extremely worn out. It may shut down while someone's using it, causing them to slip or fall or get injured while using it. And that's a real concern for me. And so if you just, all you have to do is take what you know and package it in terms of safety. I think that's number one. And then the second would be financial. Like, obviously, like, hey, there's been places I walk into, I'm like, I know this unit's under warranty. If you let me file the warranty, I can get you $1,000 worth of parts before it expires, you know, and that sometimes can light a fire under them to say, all right, cool, let's get maintenance in place. I'll let you, you know, do the service call and da da da. But I think the safety aspect is number one. I'm taking pictures of broken cables or cables ready to break, you know, and I'm showing that to whoever. I will show that to the front desk. I will show it to the management. I'll send it in an email and say, hey, you see this, you know, the metal's exposed. And that's another thing don't, you have to oversimplify because I'll tell you, hey, your cable's damaged. And they'll go, what does that mean to me? And I go, well, the coating's cracked and your wiring is exposed. Keep going. Why does it matter? Well, if the wire is exposed, it's going to wear down, and you'll start to see these little fibers will start to split apart. You know, and so you have to go to say, with this wire exposed, it will break on someone while they're using it, and they could get injured. Just leave it right there. You know, don't go any deeper. They're not going to care, and it's not going to sway them one way or another. So you
Yeah.
have to oversimplify. You have to distill it down to the most relatable point, you know?
Yeah. Understood, heard, been through that.
Yep,
It is
I'm
difficult.
sure.
It is difficult not to get technical in things to us that do not feel technical.
Mhm.
How often have you been there and you said something that seems like a no-brainer and the person's staring at you blankly? Yeah, you're exactly right. Keep it in, okay, is this going to cost you money? Is someone going to get hurt and is that going to cost you money?
Right,
Because at the same time too, one of the things that we talk about at Service RX is our job is to mitigate your liability. So
Right.
sometimes your liability is mitigated by simply someone does get hurt. It will happen if you're in business long enough. Somebody is going to get hurt in the fitness center that you're taking care of, and you may be pulled into some kind of legal action. And so hopefully you have field service software that is digital that you can keep up with. You have records that you can quickly pull, and you prove that you're doing everything under your power to do the right things. That's what an apartment complex, and a hotel, a gym needs to be doing to make sure that when those instances happen, that you can quickly produce um the proper paperwork saying that I've been doing everything that's possible, you know, and that
Right.
really does help. So you're correct. So you came in and you're just a guy on the truck, right? And you've been through all these years of people coming and going. So, what are you guys doing today now that helps create the pathway and bring people into the industry and and keeping them here? So, we have this weird saying, and I've heard other techs say it. And so, if you've been here 3 years, you're usually here for life. So, how are
Checks
you
out.
getting people to get to that 3 year mark?
Yeah. I like I said before, I worked in the field to deliveries and installations, moved into management, moved back into service and maintenance, moved back into management. I even took kind of a brief hiatus from ACE. Me and my wife moved up to Alaska. She had finished her internship as a dietitian, had a really great opportunity. It was just kind of a perfect storm of our life to where it made sense to leave. And that even then I was in Alaska looking at gyms like, well, these people need to get their cables replaced, you know? And so with that hiatus, I moved out of the industry briefly and I came back kind of with a fresh set of eyes, you know, and I kept in touch with the guys here. And the biggest thing when I came back was like, we need training, you know, we need standardized training that makes sense to guys, that gives them an idea of what they're supposed to be doing here, you know, and it really fit my skill set well just because I'd been in every position. I've done deliveries and installs, I've been customer facing, I've done service and maintenance, the whole nine, you know, and so it just made sense to focus heavily on that training. We developed a 90-day program where we bring in anybody who has a little bit of an experience, no experience at all, and at the end of 90 days, the goal is to have you be a lead technician. And that means you will be able to run a delivery truck by yourself. You'll be able to do maintenance by yourself and probably even part and hand repairs at that point, as far as service is concerned, where we should be able to give you a part and you replace it. Full blown diagnostics, like it's unteachable in 90 days. You know, you can start to dabble and you can start to coach guys, but diagnostics is really that next step of like past your 90 days. You should be focusing on how to diagnose properly. But that 90-day program is really has done us wonders. Like I don't have the numbers on it, but I can just tell you because I've run the 90-day, the longevity is just so much better. We would have guys come in and it might be 2 weeks to a month, maybe a month and a half, get a no call, no show, get a 2 weeks notice, they don't fulfill, whatever, you know, and that would happen pretty frequently. You know, of course, as a company, we take that responsibility to say, what are we doing wrong and what can we do better? Because you can't control the labor market. You can't control the people that are, you know, applying for jobs. So we can only focus on what we can do better. And so when we built that 90-day, I would just see more retention because it's broken down to say, hey, here's your 90-day. Let's break it down to 30. There's 4 objectives through this 30-day, once a week. Like focus on this week, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And then we'll have a 30-day check-in. Hey, how'd that go? Did everything make sense? Here's some simple foundational stuff. Are you able to show up on time? You know, have that check-in. And then after that, it's like, great, I'll see you at your 60-day. It's like, cool. And so each of these steps, I think the technician has something to look forward to. They have a moment to have one-on-one time with a supervisor. They have really laid out black and white achievable goals for each of those weeks. And we sit down and we talk about them and we measure them. And so you hit that at your 30-day and say, hey, I'll see you at 60. You see them at 60, hey, I'll see you at 90. And after that 90-day is finished, we have like their formal review. After your 90 days, you get a full-fledged, like we look back over that 90-day program. We highlight your highlights and highlight your lowlights, tell you what we like and what we can improve on, you know? And for me, that's that 3 month gap that you get to pour into guys and you get to see how much they're willing to buy in. You know, you have to obviously have the buy in from the guy here. What's nice about our industry is that there's really no room for people to just get by, you know, to float along, you know. At McDonald's, you can walk around the kitchen and look busy, you know, but at Ace Fitness and in our industry in general, there's work in front of you and that needs to be done. And there's no way around that. You know, that treadmill has to come alive. It's got to be built. The part has to be swapped. Like there's no sugarcoating it. There's no walking away from it. You know, you got to do the work at hand. So you can tell in short order who has the potential. And then from there, it's really the onus of the technician to buy into the program and the onus on the company to continue to pour and pour knowledge and tips and tricks at every opportunity. So with that 90-day, phenomenal. We have another manager who does KPVs, which are our key project visits, and we highlight those you know, really important jobs where there's a lot of knowledge to be had because you're not going to see the same thing every week. I mean, when I was in the field, it was like I'd work on a Stairmaster, I'd get a great lesson on power flow and how the alternator back feeds to the brake, and I might not work on a Stairmaster for another 2 or 3 months, you know, just for the luck of the draw, you know? And so we try to find those ones that we think there's a lot of value in, assign a manager to go give some in-person training at the time and just maximize the investment into the technicians and training.
How long before you, or should I say, do you value sending them to manufacturer training sooner or later, or at all?
Later, for sure. Later more so because of the company investment that it takes to get guys trained up or get guys, I should say, manufacturer certified. It's a massive investment. And I don't know if that's really taken into account by manufacturers. It's like, hey, pay 800, 1200, 50, whatever the cost is to get certified to have the pleasure of working on our product, you know? And I don't know if they're taking into account what you're asking is for a business to remove a revenue generating component for an extended period of time and to also add expenses to that to hopefully get some sort of work from them, right? And I don't know that manufacturer training comes close to what you can learn in the field from technicians who have experience already. You know, I went to, this isn't a knock to Precor, but I went to Precor training in 2017. Granted, I only had delivery experience. So no field service experience, no real maintenance experience. It was just an investment on behalf of the company to say, hey, let's get you certified. Let's see, you know, and we'll hopefully see some return on the investment. The program was just challenging for me to stay engaged with, especially as a new to the industry technician. They kind of started out with like understanding what an ohm is and like electrical theory, which is necessary, but was overwhelming up front. It was 8-hour classes for 5 days straight. And it was just like a bull, like an information dump, you know, and I walked away like, yeah, I learned some stuff and I got a USB full of info, but you could not put me on a service route tomorrow. You know, you could not trust me to do anything after this. And again, you know, I'm not saying that to say pre-course training wasn't any good. There was plenty of experienced technicians there who seemed to find value in everything, but me as a new person, I honestly just didn't belong there. You know? I did not belong there. I didn't feel like I belonged there. So investment in manufacturer certification is very limited right now. I think we would only do it to, you know, expand relationships with manufacturers if they require it, and you know, in turn we'll get some more installations and, you know, some service relationship style stuff. Then we can discuss it. But as it stands now, it's just not worth the investment, you know?
So to put a number on what you were talking about, the average cost is, depending on your market that you work in, depending on if you're heavy residential versus commercial. But if we call 3 days of training and 2 days of travel, so that ends up being a solid week, your
Hmm.
average cost is 5,000 plus. So it's opportunity cost lost. right? The work that got lost that week, your travel, your hotel, your cost of training, food, per diem, etc.
No,
So
it's obscene.
if yep,
I couldn't
it's
stomach it. You know, if I have this, I would say if I can just give you half of that money here, we could make better use of the money here to invest deeper training, hands on in the field with a variety of brands. You know, with our maintenance book, I see every brand. I see Matrix, I see Precore, I see Stairmaster, I see True. I know where they are. I know where I can take our technicians and work on those pieces if I want to train them in specifics regarding that piece. What can a manufacturer possibly offer in terms of service proficiency 1,000 miles away in a classroom with 20 people? And maybe we have a piece to work on, maybe we don't. Maybe it's a current piece, maybe it's an old piece. Maybe they don't even use those parts anymore. I don't know. But I would prefer to work on the pieces that we actually work on, you know? And I think that the investment is better made locally as it stands right now.
how can we okay, so like what's your view then on centralizing the training to getting it to where it has different levels? So beginner, entry level, tech 1, tech 2,
Sure.
tech 3. What do you think about that?
I mean, I couldn't think of a better solution in my opinion, because how can there I don't think you could find a way for me to get on board with one technician, right? I just mentioned we service every brand. We see every brand. If I had to send one technician to each of those certifications, I mean, what are we talking? You know what I mean? 30 grand of investment. You know, the technician is 5 weeks out of work so they can work on life, matrix, pre-core, true, you know, and core. And, you know, it's not feasible, you know, and it almost feels like that's such a barrier for technicians to be proficient. It feels like a way for manufacturers to retain control, to be like, you come get certified with us, you do the work on our product and our product only. And because you can't possibly afford to do everybody else's, you know? So come get certified here. We'll give you the work and you'll be our service technician, our independent service technician that works on our equipment only, you know? And so yeah, centralizing it would be phenomenal, you know, and that's part of what is missing, you know, with HVAC and plumbing and electricians. They all have like trades. They all have a place to go get certified and a place to become an official, right? An official plumber, an official HVAC tech, an official electrician. What do we have as fitness equipment technicians to become, you know? I work on this brand, you know, I work on this lineup for this club. There's no official stamp of approval to be like, I'm a fitness equipment service technician. And so to centralize it, like it would be such a relief, and it would give people who enter the industry that path that I was talking about earlier. There's a real pathway for you and an end game, you know, become a fully certified service technician, that you are certified across the board, you know, on all these, you know, you'd have to evaluate what metrics are important, you know, being able to, you know, measure resistance across a drive motor or resistors on a Stairmaster or, you know, amp draw, you know, there'd be base level metrics that you measure. It'd be an entry point, it'd be somewhere to start, you know, it'd be somewhere to start where guys have an end game. They can become certified fitness equipment technicians, and then we can go from there. Maybe then you can move on to specialized training if you need it or if you want it. But I don't think that it should be a requirement for me to fly to 6 different manufacturers. And God forbid they require that every technician that works on the equipment needs to be certified, because now your company is just getting shut down. It creates the barrier for, like, if you're a solopreneur, maybe you can make it to all of these. But if as soon as you scale and you have 4 or 5 technicians, it just is no longer feasible.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so how do we get them then to priority? Okay. How do we change the messaging? Let me think about words here. How do we change the messaging for the message? How do we change the messaging to communicate the importance of service after the sale? And how has this maintenance free thought process actually hurt us as an industry? So as you're going out to do sales, you run into this, but I have a warranty.
Mhm.
How's this maintenance free attitude sort of hurt us?
Right. Yeah. So I walk into, this is largely multifamily spaces. And yeah, my pitch will be like, I'm with Ace Fitness. We do service and maintenance in your facility, given free inspection. And we have a warranty. We actually don't need maintenance. We have a warranty. We're good. And I know that that's not something that the property manager drummed up in their head. It's something that they were told, or that has been told at scale to say, hey, you've got warranty, no maintenance. You're cool. Don't even look at your equipment. And every time it's one of the most challenging pushbacks that I have without coming off as like too aggressive or confrontational. Cause immediately it's like you couldn't be more wrong. And you don't want to just tell somebody that. But my retort is, we have warranty. We don't need maintenance. I say, actually, that's a perfect time to start maintenance. If you don't have anybody monitoring your warranty, you won't know when you can get those warranty parts or when you should get them. It doesn't always go over well, even as polite and simple as that is. It's still like, yeah, but we're cool. Um, and so it doesn't always land right. But I think when I see things like maintenance free in sales sheets or I see maintenance free in a manual, it's like it it just doesn't it couldn't be more disingenuous. I don't understand how people can say that. Every piece of equipment I've ever worked on requires maintenance for one, and without maintenance, I mean, I've walked into places without maintenance. You have broken crank bolts on ellipticals because they're foregoing maintenance. You have cables ready to snap on somebody because they're foregoing maintenance. And where did they get the idea that they could just live without it? It's to pull back to the car analogy. No one at the dealership is going and saying, this truck maintenance free, dude. Don't sweat it. You don't have to take care of a thing on it and expect it to drive the way you'd want it to. When you blow a tire out, it's like, oh, warranty. It's like, so yes, if I don't know where the attitude or the idea has come from, but it's somehow permeated into manufacturers' verbiage and thus into salespeople's verbiage to be like, you don't need maintenance, it's covered, don't sweat it, blow it off. And it just is a gut punch to the service side of things. 100%. How can I overcome that? The salesperson who rightly did everything right on their end as a salesperson to build trust and a relationship, and now this person is looking to you for guidance and you're misguiding them. But they're going to take your word for it. You're the salesperson. You wore a nice suit and tie up in here and you cut me a great deal and you got me this percent off MSRP. Why shouldn't I believe you now? And so you leave them with the taste of, and you don't need maintenance. They're going to believe it. They're going to buy it. And you're just hurting the people that install the equipment for you, that service the equipment for you. You're hurting them every time that you fall back onto maintenance free. Yeah, warranty, having warranty, not having warranty has nothing to do with whether or not you need maintenance. You need maintenance 100% for one reason or another. If you don't have warranty, maybe even more so because you're open up to liability and you're being negligent and things are going to start breaking. But if it's under warranty, I like to tell people with a treadmill, you can get a damn near 2 for 1. If you monitor that appropriately, you're going to land at a mileage where the treadmill needs a belt and deck. And now guess what? You just got an 8-year treadmill instead of a 4-year. Or wait until year 5, your warranty expires and you've got $2,000 in repair bills. Like, what do you want to do here? If you can see the value in holding that maintenance the entire time, then you should have it in place. And it really lands on us as service providers to continue to have those conversations with people. Don't back down when they tell you that they've got warranty. It's real easy to go, oh, okay, have a good day. Don't back down. Maintenance free is not true, and warranty does not equal maintenance. You need to push back on that every chance you get, and not in a rude way, not in a I know more than you way, just in an educational and a connected manner. Like oh yeah, that's a great opportunity for me to help you. Let me talk to you about why that's wrong. And, it's up to us to continue to have that conversation with people and push it into people it's not optional. It's not optional. And manufacturers should not make it optional. And salespeople should not sell it as optional.
I agree. I think about this a lot, and I hope to one day be able to have the conversations with those who will listen. I took that opportunity with Tabitha the other day, and just by off the top of my head, realizing that let's put a QR code on the front of every manual that says this is maintenance, right? And this is exactly what you need to do. But could you imagine every iFit treadmill that has the QR code right on the front and it says you must do these three things and scan here. And so that they can learn about vacuuming them out, cleaning underneath the belt and lubricating, but at the same time too, I believe that there's our dealers and our salespeople have good intentions. They truly do, but they also are trying to make the sale and they're trying to stand out. And why is mine better than theirs? And that, I mean, I get why things happen. I don't know where maintenance free or the lack of maintenance mindset started because it's always been here in my years. But what would be nice is that if we were to come around and start changing that language again on commercial maintenance manuals, that maintenance is right up front. Here's your warranty. This is where you void it. Salespeople teaching that to say, hey, just real quick, here's what you got to do. This stuff doesn't matter what brand, dude. You take care of this customer, and it's going to last you. I didn't sell you garbage. All right. I was
Right.
truthful in the things that I said to you. I didn't sell you garbage, but you have to do your part in this. And then I've always said, and I keep playing with the idea, but I'll throw it out this way. How about after the first year, there can't be any maintenance done? I mean, excuse me, any warranty work done on a piece of equipment that the manufacturer has not had a maintenance agreement uploaded for the end user, right? So they've got one in place commercially, right? And it at least has to be every 6 months that someone steps in and touches your equipment and cleans it up, and that's
Right.
uploaded in their system, you
Yeah, it's a
know?
great point, Scott, because that's, in every one of in every one of these manuals, there's also the section where it says if not properly maintained, your warranty could be void.
How
But
often have you
nobody
seen that
enforces
happen?
that. Nobody enforces that.
In all my years, I've seen that happen one time. Versailles, a large chain or a larger chain, not one of the largest, but a large franchise fitness facility. Strangely enough, they're only owned one corporate gym. And their corporate gym was being run by somebody who was just not doing what was necessary. And it was close to a military base and everything was getting trashed. And I saw Matrix finally send out email and said, we're not coming back until you handle your community. This is ridiculous how many times we're sending people because it was constantly breaking emergency stop buttons. And it was just all this little stuff constantly that was all in the fact that, no one was teaching the community how to treat the equipment. Because if you've ever been on military bases, there's a high amount of broken stuff just because they go ape shit on it.
Sure, sure. Yep.
And that's cool. I mean, that's cool, but it's got to be the right equipment for the right people. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I would just love to see that happen. I would love for everybody be a part of this conversation. Everybody wins. It
Yeah, and
doesn't
one
feel like it at first, but everyone wins.
one thing to note too is like there's so much synergy between sales and service that's overlooked. In
Mhm.
this last year or so, we've kind of branched into some sales as well. And because we realize sales feeds everything in a way. If you make the sale, you get the maintenance. If you get the maintenance, you get the service. If you've got the service, you get the next sale. And so salespeople partnering with the right install partner, the right maintenance partner is crucial because once you sell them that club, you don't really have any business with them for the next 5 to 10 years, 5 to 7 maybe, but how do you keep track of that? How do you keep a 5 year, 7 year lead on your vision board? And the way you do that is partnering with the right service and maintenance partner. If you've got a technician who just does service and maintenance, they don't really have an interest in branching into sales, and you partner with them, they can take care of your installs, they can do the quarterly maintenance, and then as time goes on and that service becomes untenable, maybe parts are no longer available, maybe the repair is so big they're just thinking about replacement. It's the perfect opportunity for the service tech to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, it's about time for a refresh in here. Let's get your client back on your radar, and it's time to start upgrading." And so salespeople lose that in they've got their own tracking systems, and I don't know how they do everything, but they lose that if they don't keep a finger on the pulse. And so the synergy between sales and service is so it just feeds itself. That's something we kind of realize as our company is that the level of inquiry from our service clients for sales was getting so there was so much volume that it was like, okay, it just comes to a point where it doesn't make sense to refer this out any longer. And so if you're a service technician and you aren't partnered with the right salespeople, maybe you just need to become the salesperson. Having the service knowledge has benefited me in the sales conversations tremendously, because I'll walk in and they'll say, well, salesperson said this or that. And then I may have advice to the contrary. Like, look, as a service technician, the person who works on this stuff year over year, I'm telling you, don't make this decision because this will be your result. And there's another level of trust there as your service technician. To be like, this guy works on it. He sees the equipment. I think he knows what he's talking about. It's like asking your mechanic, what kind of car do you see the most in here? It's like, Audi. I don't want to see Audi come into my shop. It's hard to work on. I don't like the repairs are difficult. It's like, great, I'm going to take your word for it. And you tell me what the most reliable car is. So as
Doesn't
a
your
service
boss drive an
technician, you
Audi?
have the whole another level of insight.
Doesn't your boss drive an Audi?
I don't know who drives an Audi, dude. I don't know who does that around here. I drive a Toyota and a Honda. So
I think your boss drives an Audi. Anyhow, um, yeah, you're exactly right. Relationship is everything. You want to know who to call and ask for an honest opinion. And sometimes that honest opinion does not jive with what the salesperson wants to do, you know? And the
right.
salespeople
Yeah.
that you work with have to understand that your first, as a service company, your first tenet must be honesty and transparency, not to make the sale. Because at the same
Right.
time, too,
Right.
we're the ones who, if you know what you're doing, you should know when you need to also turn down a customer's repair, and here's why, right? And be able to explain
Right.
to them why. It's not worth it. And at the same time, too, not opening a can of worms for the customer. Because sometimes that
Right.
repair is a
No.
can of worms. The machine hasn't been
Yeah.
worked on in so long.
I've got a client. We're dealing with a client right now with a cracked weld on their frame of the weight stack, and it's like, even if we can get the part, like, it's like, it wouldn't even be it just doesn't even make sense. Like, it would be better for me to pick this up and take it to the weld shop, but now I've altered the integrity of the original piece, like, there is a spot where you have to say, "My service is no longer helpful." It's just being risky at this point, and it's time to give them the right advice. Like, unfortunately, we're at the end of the road here. Start budgeting for a new chest press. It's just going to be what it is. I encourage service providers to branch out in the services they offer and find ways to be the total fitness solution for your clients. It's such a valuable resource because as a service provider, you don't have as much pull as a salesperson. And if you tag in a salesperson that you're not familiar with or partnered with, they're going to replace you with whoever they're using. Their installers are going to get the install. They may also get the service and the maintenance. You just may lose a client because you had to refer something out. So I just encourage service providers to find ways to provide value and provide a total fitness solution. It'll change the way your business can operate, and it will change the level of clientele you can service and the amount of clients you can get.
Yeah, yeah. I am baffled by seeing our some of our colleagues in our industry, baffled as well as admire. Baffled because it is risky. Admire them because they pull it off. When individuals are working on stuff that is super old, where parts aren't available, and then they are, creating parts to make things work.
Right.
cool. I mean, it's like, wow, and I'm glad you're recycling and you're making sure that things are working. And I get it. I've just been through lawsuits and
Right.
I'm sorry, call it jaded, call it whatever, but I don't want to be at the end of that lawsuit anymore because we've never lost one. We've always done the right things and everything else. It's still,
Mhm.
you still got premiums to pay. And that's money that I'd rather keep, to do better things with than pay a lawyer to fight something that feels frivolous. So, yeah, I get it. I get it. So, warranty calls, not getting paid, things like that. What do you guys get do? How at Ace do you guys approach the warranty side and cash flow? Like, so money's coming in, and then suddenly it doesn't, right? Warranty, manufacturers are getting better at paying, I must say. Some don't, most are. Um, but you know, sometimes even customers sometimes feel like they want things like we should come do things for free. What's your view on that?
Yeah, we are fortunate enough to not have warranty labor be like a large cross section of our revenue. We don't rely on warranty work. We don't actively seek it out. So tremendously grateful for the way that our business has grown and the position that we're in to not have to rely on that. That said, a lot of people do, and it's unfortunate because labor rates can sometimes not be competitive at all. to put it to put it plainly, there's not a single warranty rate that meets our minimum labor rate. So anybody calls our shop to go get work done, our labor rate, there's not a warranty rate that touches it. So every time we do a warranty job, we lose money in calendar space in a warranty job for 135, that's pretty good, 110, not that great. $90, $80, it's untenable, it's not something that we want to be involved in. I don't want to do warranty labor if we can avoid it. The process to submit claims and the admin work that goes along to it is like it's so much easier for me to just go do a service call, collect payment from customer and walk away. But with a warranty claim, it's like I need to maybe open it and schedule it in their portal and on our side, and then go do the work. And the documentation might be cumbersome, and then I've got to submit it again and then wait for payment. It's like for less, for maybe half of what I would make. And so warranty labor is not enticing in the least, to be honest. There are some companies who do it well, and there's others who don't. And I would say most don't do it well, in terms of payment. Like a speed of payment is not really concerned, but just the what I'm willing to pay you. Like it's not tenable. $80 to do anything is like it's not right. And then you have manufacturers who maybe they want to diagnose over the phone, which I don't fully understand. I'd love to get an explanation from a manufacturer as to what makes them think it's more cost effective for them to hear a squeaking sound over the phone or through a video and determine what parts are needed and send it out and hope they're right. Because we go out and we have that part and it's like, yeah, it's not this part. Do you want me to install this part? Do you want me to return it? Because we're going to need a completely different one. And now you get paid for that visit, but you're waiting for parts to come in. The customer experience goes way down. You know what I mean? They're not happy because they thought the manufacturer had it covered. Yeah, we'll send out the crank and the flywheel. We heard it in the video. And you get there, it's like, yeah, it's not that at all. And so I don't understand how it makes sense from the manufacturer side to send out parts preliminarily in order to maybe avoid paying a diagnostic visit. For me, it's like pay the diagnostic. Go out, we get a real diagnostic done. We know what parts are actually needed, and then pay the return trip and be done with it. But we've run circles chasing stuff because the manufacturer wanted to recommend this and they didn't think it was that. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, or learn to ask better questions. So my 52-year-old ears can usually, again, you can ask your customers this, right? Over the phone, if you're still going to send parts, where do you believe this sound is emitting from? And does it sound like a squeal? Does it sound like a thump? Does it sound, like gravel? Those sort of all tell us different things as well. And
Right.
teaching those who do those initial phone calls, solve a problem. Now, it's better on the commercial side than it is the residential side, because the commercial side, more often than not, you're going to speak to someone that's been getting more training than on the residential side who's sitting in a call center just answering phones,
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
watches a couple of videos. Well, watching videos does not teach you anything about repairing stuff until you've been in it for a while. And then you do start to learn how to repair things. You understand because you've seen it before, right? But yeah, there's definite ways that we can reverse engineer this dragon eating its tail so that we can get the tail out of the dragon's mouth and have conversations. But it first is going to take everybody coming to the table to discuss these things and putting our money where our mouth is on both sides of the table. So, what does that mean by both sides of the table? I truly believe that manufacturers should be paying a livable wage. All right.
Certainly.
Uh, that means that let's first start with paying the whole hour up front, right? And then paying you hourly. But let's make sure that that first hour has a minimum. Well, what does a minimum mean? Depending on market, if you're mom and pop, your minimum to work, so you and one other person, let's say, it takes, you're able to work at, your minimum is $75 an hour to operate. So anything 100 and above is great. But as soon as you add that third and fourth person, that number starts to dramatically change, right? So let's just say industry wide that no ifs, ands, or buts, we are 100 and higher for that first hour. And then that hourly rate has to be something that makes sense. And it needs to be closer to that $100 an hour mark to stay consistent with every market. That dollar amount is not going to work in Manhattan,
Sure.
not at all. You're in Phoenix. Again, you're one of the largest cities in the US. Still not sure if it works in your market. It can work in Atlanta. It can work in Charlotte. It can work in St. Louis. Don't know about Chicago. Definitely probably not LA. San Francisco, probably not either. None of California, really. But we have to think about these things moving forward to get our industry to attract those, again, creating the pathway to
Right.
bring in those people who are much better than being the fry cook at McDonald's that just
Right.
has a repetitive task, right? Because we are being asked to have soft skills. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Hi, gym manager. Hi,
Right.
corporate fitness, secretary, whoever. Hi, salesperson. Hi, manufacturer. Um, have these conversations. High apartment complex, and the multifamily space is I think probably the hardest place to operate. They don't want us there. And it's very obvious as soon as you come through the door. They don't want you there. Doesn't matter what they tell you
Yeah.
to your face. We all know what it is like. I haven't had a salesperson that said she swears, and she's on the sales side. She swears that it's like sport to them on how far and how long they can drag you in the fitness world, whether it's service, whether it's sales, whether it's anything to do. I don't
Sure.
know if that means that if you work for HD Supply and you're selling hot water heaters and everything else, if they treat you that way because they know the importance of all that, but the amenities, not so much.
Yeah.
And that's just truth. And we'll argue that till the day that we die. And for anybody who's a part of the apartment associations that's on the service side of fitness and you go to the associations, you know the feeling because you are treated that way inside of your groups. Do you do apartment associations as development?
I do. Yeah, we do. It's called the AMA out here, Arizona Multi-Housing Association. You get good exposure. It's challenging to get people really nailed down and have a conversation about how to proceed best. So it's a lot of grind. It is a lot of grind, a lot of follow-up, just and they'll bounce you back to be like, well, we usually let property managers make that decision. And then the property manager will say, well, that's usually made at a higher level. It's like, all right, who there is no more levels to deal with here. So who is it? Which one of you is it? So it's certainly challenging.
Yeah, I've experienced in our region, much of the decision making has been removed from the on-site manager's position. Now you need them in your corner if possible, but
Yeah,
most of the decision making on budget, the final budget is by the regional or someone in that general space. And so getting to know your regionals, learning to communicate and contact them and stay on their radar is highly important. The best place to do that for those who do not know would be LinkedIn and then knocking on doors. And the hard part then is if you're knocking on doors, they may oversee 5, 6, 7, 8 communities, sometimes 2 or 3, and you're lucky if you walk into where they actually manage that one.
right.
If you had, if you had the genie in the bottle, right? And you're thinking about all the things that you guys are talking about of God, what needs to change. If you were to try to pull a couple levers right now, let's say up to three, if you can think of three off the bat, what would you change right now about the services side of the industry?
Number one, I think it has to call back to what we mentioned earlier is centralized, standardized certification. How can you feel like you have a pathway forward in an industry if you don't even feel like there is an industry there, that no one talks about and nobody has a name for the position? And, what entices you to stick around and where's the end game? So, number one, if there was one place you could be flown out to and trained up in all things fitness equipment, it would be a game changer for the industry. I think it would just bolster, the support that we can provide specifically to manufacturers. I think that there needs to be manufacturer investment in this, to ensure that the people working on your product are proficient in that. For me, it's like, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want there to be more people who can work on your equipment and represent you positively? So that would be one, is some sort of centralized, standardized certification would be phenomenal. The other thing that's bothered me in the last couple years is realizing the I don't know what the right word is, but there's this power in sales that can box you out of a market and box you out of a manufacturer, right? I've heard people say the words, "We could just turn off their account. We can turn somebody on and turn somebody off." And whatever that is, not right. You know, there shouldn't be a case where you're shutting people's accounts down for preference, not because of the quality of work they're doing, or they've misrepresented you as the manufacturer, and they're damaging your brand. Like, all of that we can talk about, but for people to say, I don't really like what this person's doing in the market, or I don't like that they're competing against somebody that I work with, it's poppycock, for lack of a better word. It's not right. I don't like to see that there's so much power in the sales that a salesperson or a sales group can flick switches and determine the life and the longevity and the scalability of a service provider. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's cool. So I think that is something that I would look to change, and it's why I continue to encourage service providers to explore options. One thing, as a service provider, you can do sales. You can do sales, and I'm sorry, salesman, you can't do service. I'm gonna just say it right now. So I encourage service providers to explore that.
Yeah, I agree. Say it louder though, man, because I don't know how many times we have salespeople who call us and they're trying to do service, and they are just they've gotten themselves into a hole. And there's some that only do it every once in a while. They're just trying to help out the customer. I get it. I get that. It's the ones that consistently do it, especially on equipment that they don't sell and they don't know anything about. And then they call and they want free tech support because they simply cannot call um, the other manufacturer. They have to call somebody that they know. So I agree completely, and I
Yeah.
agree
Just
about
draw your line.
using. I agree about this backdoor power that we know happens. Um, there's someone who I know that you guys have recently been working with that I've worked with that's used that line in conversations with me, and I just won't put up with it, you know, at all.
Yeah.
Luckily, for those who are still growing, the bigger you get, the harder it is to knock you off your pedestal. The key to success
Right.
is to grow as many stool legs as possible. Strangely enough, a three-legged stool is stronger than a four-legged stool. So what does that mean? If you keep adding stuff to your repertoire, at some point in time, you start weakening your ability to be successful. So keep that in mind. Lastly, let's leave this because you're in the development space. If you're looking back and you're telling the new person who's getting into sales, the person who's not really good at developing the customer, what are your highlights for them? You know this now, but what do you wish you would have known prior?
You have to refine your approach to address people's pain points and your don't highlight everything you know, right? They don't care about what you know or what you can do or who lubricates the treadmill the best. They only care about who can solve their problems. And so everything you have to do is figure out what their problem is, and all your conversations have to be centered around how you're going to solve that problem for them. And if that's a budget concern or a safety concern or I want the coolest fitness center on the block concern, then you have to approach your conversations that way. It's all about the pain point of the client. We work in service, and service spans many industries, but that can't be lost in fitness equipment. We're servicing a client. How can I best serve you? Right. And you have to find their pain points, and you can ask that outright. Like, what are you struggling with the most? What's your biggest concern surrounding your fitness center, surrounding, your resident retention, surrounding, the people using the fitness center? What's the pain, And they'll tell you. People love to complain. People love to talk about their problems. What's bothering you? What's going on? Talk to me. And when you let somebody vent to you and explain the issues they're having and the struggles that they want to overcome, you just have to listen. You have to listen and really really hone in on what's hurting them. And once you have that, it's just a matter of, like I said, how are you going to solve that? I can give you, people will come to us with pricing discrepancies. We're too expensive, we're more expensive than their current provider. you know but they may have came to us with saying that they've broken cables, they're not hearing from their vendor, etc. And so it's like, well, great, let's focus on the pain point here. You have equipment out of order. You've got people complaining to you about the gym condition. So your problem here really isn't the budget. It's the activity surrounding the fitness center that you need solved. So tell you what, I can have parts here in a week. I can have a technician out there the following, and you're going to have everything up and running. So there's your fix. And from there, it's just, was the person truthful or not? Was that really their pain point, and have you resolved it? And so find the pain point and tell them how you're going to fix it is number one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Cameron. It's been great. I'm so glad that we had this conversation today. I'm
Me
glad
too.
that I
It's
I'm
fun.
glad that you and your boss man are a part of NAFTA. And for those who are watching this today, NAHFTA registration is happening now. By the time you see this video, NAHFTA will be fully launched. Go out, get your membership, join the marketplace. Marketplace, what's the marketplace? Oh, the marketplace is, think Facebook marketplace, but for our industry. A place where you can go find things at a better price than you're going to find customer facing. Just keep that in mind. But we are again, we are so happy to have you guys join us today. We're so happy to have Camron with us today. Thank you so much, Camron. We appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you out on the West Coast this year. Talk your boss into bringing you, and we'll hang out and we'll get a cheeseburger together.
Most definitely. I appreciate it, Scott. It was a blast. I'm looking forward to seeing you at HFA. And yeah, I had a blast. I'm super happy for the opportunity to chop it up. I'm looking forward to more discussions like this.
All right. Thanks, man.
Cool. Take care, Scott.